like to indicate on record at the end of the November 19th meeting, the board did go into an executive session, but neglected to state the reason why. So I would like to, on the record, reflect that the board entered into executive session in accordance with Open Meeting Law 105D to discuss proposed litigation.
On public comments, any public comments regarding specific board action items? I believe we have one from Mr. Salma.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to all the recipients. My comment for board action is for consent agenda item 6, adoption of the November meeting minutes. Following vote of agenda item 6 on December 17, 2025 is being recorded, and this record will be provided to evidence for the Committee on Open Government, as well as the Education Department and Judiciary. First, the minutes do not comply with our district's policy 2508, which requires documenting the late arrival of any board member, officer, or administrator. The middle school principal's late arrival is missing from the public record. While this is likely a clerical error, the far more serious issue is the board's abrupt and deliberate alteration of how public comments are documented. The proposed minutes no longer identify public speakers by name, nor do they include even a minimal summary of the remarks they made. Instead, the record states only that a member of the public addressed the board. This is clearly not a permissible format under the law. The body's own policies require a summary of any significant discussion and recognizes the need for recording opinions that are critical of the board. New York State Public Officers Law, subsection 106, requires that minutes contain a record of summary of all matters discussed, and the Committee on Open Government has repeatedly stated that minutes must reflect the substance of public comments. Reducing the record to generic content-free statements is something the COOG has explicitly condemned as sanitizing the public record, something I've mentioned in the past. The timing of this shift is immediately after multiple transparency concerns were raised and after the board was provided with COOG opinions and case law, strongly indicating that this was an intentional move toward less transparency. At this point, the board is on clear notice that these minutes are legally deficient. Therefore, adopting them as written would no longer be your oversight. It would be a knowing and willful act, taken with full awareness that the minutes do not comply with the law. That is the definition of willfulness under the Open Meetings Law and for purposes of an Article 78 review. Accordingly, I formally request that the board not adopt the November minutes in their current form. Approval would constitute a voluntary and willful violation of the law. Correction is simple. Restore the names of public speakers, restore the summaries of their comments, and restore compliance with all sections of Open Meetings Law. Any member of the board that knowingly violates the State Public Officers Code of Ethics Law can expect to be held liable for civil and or monetary penalties. Any board that violates that law can expect to have sanctions placed, including nullification of board action. The public is entitled to lawful, accurate minutes as well as a transparent district government, and I am here to ensure that we have it. Thank you.
Mr. Salma, you're currently, based on legal guidance, we're moving forward with the minutes of the minute. Thank you for your comment. Consent agenda 6 minutes. Can I have a motion, the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education, approve consent agenda 6
minutes, item 6.1. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. All right, that brings us to our public comment section. We have a couple of cards here. First up, we have Ms. Couture. Welcome.
So I just want to reference an email that I sent following a recent board meeting. I asked how East Moriches currently involves parents, staff, and community members in district decision making. And I didn't receive a response, but I just believe the question is really important to raise publicly because it reflects the concerns that we've heard repeatedly at recent meetings. Over the past several months, topics such as the middle school field trips, the Board of Education procedures, homework expectations, and technology practices have generated significant frustration. In some cases, parents have even resorted to publicly posted petitions to get the district's attention on decision making, which obviously does not look good for our district in general. These concerns are further amplified when meetings are not recorded and when meeting minutes provide limited detail, which make it difficult for families who cannot attend the meetings to fully understand the rationale behind the district decisions. When conversations occur only after decisions are made, emotions understandably run high and the district is placed in a reactive position. One challenge in small districts like ours is where many staff and administrators live within the community. The natural assumption is that the proximity and their residences provides a comprehensive understanding of how the community feels about certain issues. In reality, informal conversations, personal experiences, while they are valuable, do not capture the full range of perspectives across the district. Without structured outreach, it's easy to unintentionally miss the voices that are quieter, less visible, or less comfortable speaking at the microphone. In my professional experience facilitating community forums and focus groups for school districts, proactively engaging stakeholders leads to much more informed decisions, greater trust, and far less conflict, both publicly and behind the scenes. When families and staff are invited to share input early, districts gain clarity and avoid the need to revisit or reverse decisions later, thereby wasting a lot of time. As a concrete next step, I respectfully encourage the board and superintendent to administer a district-wide parent and school staff survey focused on how our stakeholders experience their involvement in our students' education and in district decision-making. Collecting and sharing this data along with any of the planned next steps would demonstrate a meaningful commitment to transparency, collaboration, and the partnerships with the community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Turner. All right, next up we have Mr. Newton.
All right, I'm here to reinforce the board's concerns I have around busing in our district. And starting with the first day of school, we're on Route 1, and we were assigned a new driver to the point where he completely whiffed our stop, and it resulted in us having to bring the kids to school and see alternate transportation, right? During dismissal, the bus driver let our children, a couple neighborhood children, at a stop that was probably 2 before ours, and had we not stopped the bus driver, we would have not known that our children were let off, and they were forced to walk a considerable distance, thus giving them some relative anxiety on their first day of school. Now, I'd like to say that that was an isolated incident in our group, but it seems to be even worse with our elementary school route. We've had substitute drivers considerably, and I don't know if that's the same across all routes, but when we've had substitute bus drivers, they tend to drive rather erratically through the neighborhood. They don't know exactly where they're going. They're stopping short there, and we feel that that's rather unsafe for the children. And, we often have to leave and stop them down. Just last week, we had a substitute bus driver on Friday, and we were out there for probably 40 minutes waiting for the bus. We had no idea what was going on until we called and made a call to the bus company that said they plain out forgot to dispatch a bus to our area, right? Which, once again, places an undue burden on parents who have, work commitments to seek alternate transportation for the children. So, when I look at this, the bus is the first point of duty, first point where the duty to care for students takes place. School is doing a disservice to the students by not holding the bus company to much better standards. And having inconsistencies on the bus, right? It creates a breeding ground for malfeasance and other bad activities, as well as creating undue anxiety on the children. So I hope that the board and the district will look into and hold Montauk Bus more accountable and keep better standards of transportation here. So I'd like to thank you guys for taking a look into this. Look forward to hearing some resolution feedback. Well, Route 1 and was where we're receiving the bus, but I can't speak for the other ones.
No, it does. No, okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia. Yes, busing has been an issue. I know Mr. Littleman's been in contact with them our administrators over here, myself, had questions. There's a lot. It's mounted with us, and we are on top of it. But, you know, we are in conversation with them. I wouldn't say daily, but probably more than you think. So it's something we're looking at and
You know, that like get a contract, so there should be a contract for the county.
Yep.
So.
Thank you, Mr. Goode. Thank you. Last one we have here is Mr. Sunlight.
Hello again. So basically, I just wanted to follow up. First, you address the board members better. So, Ms. Pinegio, I agree with you, and I think the district does a great job with these trips. The teachers, the administrators, and they're important. I think they're really important to the kids, and they're important to the families, especially ones. I'm a transplant. I know a lot of people that are locals for 3-4 generations in this town. You know, you can see them on the wall outside. So I think it came to shock for us to see that the decision was sort of taken away from us, where we were, you know, I was here in August of this year when it was announced that these trips were going to be canceled.
Because when they came to present that, you were here when we had that dialogue, that it wasn't something that was aligned with what we wanted, and there was a change, and there was, I think, working with the administration and staff and the board and the superintendent, like, resulted in that change. It seemed to me that the wheels were already turning, like it was already going in that direction, and that's what like surprised me about how it's framed. I mean, to me, it seemed like that change was it was just destined to occur.
The reversal of the decision was instant.
Right, because there was no decision, it was a recommendation. Yeah. Right, and to me, like, that's the spirit of like what so many people are asking for, like open discussions. So we had a presentation, they did a great job, you know, they gave us the positives and negatives, and we listened and we considered, and then there was a resulting decision. Action. So, I mean, that to me is very, very aligned with what so many in the community want.
I agree with you. I think both the president and everyone were both very vocal at that meeting. You know, with that being said, it was sort of taken, if you want to restart that, okay? You know, it was sort of taken in the sense of, all right, well, but this is sort of the way it is. You know, a month later, I followed up when that petition started. Within a day, we had over 100 signatures, right? And then the day following, they got me back. So I don't know if I would call it inevitable. If anything, it's reactionary. But really, my concern is going forward. So it was put on a pause. The additional correspondence from Superintendent was that we were going to take a pause and revisit next year. And I guess my concern is, you know, the public has spoken, right? We made it pretty clear that we care about these trips, and you have made it very clear that you care about them as well. So I don't know if we're revisiting, if it's like, you know, factors that came to play, like precipitation or rising costs. We didn't see any data supporting any of that, so we don't really know what that, you know, where that's really coming from. The safety concerns, I mean, there's always going to be safety concerns, I understand that. But, you know, this trip's been successfully run for decades, right? So it doesn't seem, especially the 250th anniversary of the country, to cancel that DC trip, to me, it's just a shame. So my hope is that the board can exercise their powers, especially the president, to assemble a committee and have members of the public on that committee, community members, parents, teachers, administrators, that we can come to some kind of consensus where these are trips we value, and maybe we need to alter them somehow. I understand, I appreciate that the committee worked hard, I'm not saying they didn't, I just think that they came to the wrong conclusion, which was, let's sort of dig out the path, or rather than, these trips matter, we need to adjust them or pivot somewhat, which is fine. I'm open to that, but the trips are important, like you said.
So, Mr. Salachi, there was a process, right? And data was shared with the Board of Education, and data was shared with NICEP, and we evaluated that data. The committee made a recommendation to the board. The board heard that recommendation, and the board voiced their perspective and opinion, and the decision was changed. As far as being on pause, we are constantly in a cycle of evaluation. We do this yearly with our curriculum. We do it with our program offerings. We do it with our clubs. We do it with our interscholastic athletics. Like everything is constantly under evaluation. So yes, we took a pause this year. The board made it clear how they felt about the trip. But it doesn't mean that we won't still continue to make sure that we're looking for the best opportunities for our kids.
And I appreciate that, and I think that's the key, right? It is a great opportunity for the kids, but it's a totally parent-funded trip. So, why it's a cost issue, if the parents decide whether or not to, if not, the district, or the district doesn't fund. But I do think that the community input is valuable, I think you're getting that part of it. So, we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Before we close out, end of the year, this year flew by. Just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year.